What's up guys, thanks for stopping by. I hope you're doing good. In today's video we're going to be talking all about some beginners tips and tricks for Enshrouded. There's tons of useful tips in this video that will hopefully make you a little bit more prepared for diving in to the Shroud. Let's jump into it. The first thing we're going to talk about is item deletion protection. Without this specific setting on, there will be no warning when deleting items in the inventory, and once they are deleted, they are gone forever. By default, if you right click on an item, there'll be an option to delete it, and if you click delete, it's gone forever. This is super easy to do by accident, but there is a setting that prevents this from happening. If you first go to settings and then the game tab, you can scroll down to item deletion protection and turn the setting all the way down to common and above. This will mean you get a warning to confirm whether or not you want to delete an item, regardless of how good it is. By default, this pop-up will only show up for higher tier items, but it's way too easy to do by accident, so I highly recommend turning this on. There is also a toggle box in this pop-up where you can make it not show up until the next time you open your inventory, just to make things a little more easier when you do just want to delete a bunch of items. The next thing we're going to talk about is camera distance. One of the first things you may notice when playing Enshrouded is how zoomed in the camera is by default. This can be a little bit of an issue because it can make it look like enemies are just coming out of nowhere, because it does make them harder to see. But if you go into settings and go to the game tab, there is actually a slider for camera distance. And this is another essential setting that will help keep you out of trouble. Zooming the camera out just a little bit can make a huge difference and help you spot those enemies before it's too late. This one is actually related to camera distance, and it's actually about FOV. This might be a little obvious for some, but turning up the FOV slider will also allow you to see more stuff on the screen and make things a little bit easier than that default camera view that the game starts with. I recommend tweaking camera distance and FOV to find your personal sweet spot. I personally play with both turned up just a little bit and find that this helps with any problems with spotting enemies. Next up is the glider and the grappling hook. When you first jump into Enshrouded, the game does just dump you into the world and allow you to do whatever you want. But you should know that as soon as you make a workbench, you are actually able to make a grappling hook and the glider, and I recommend prioritizing this right away. As soon as you place a workbench, you'll see that for the glider, you need 8 shroud wood, 2 animal fur, 2 string, and 2 shroud spores. Finding all of these mats should be pretty obvious. And to craft a grappling hook, you need 4 metal scrap, 7 string, and 10 shroud spores. For the shroud stuff, just dive into the shroud, you'll find those mats in no time. Also remember, you can actually pin this recipe from this menu, and that'll keep the mats up on screen for you so you can remember them. We'll talk about how to get metal scraps in just a moment, but getting this grappling hook and this glider super early will greatly improve your ability to traverse the world and save you a ton of wasted time. Metal scrap. Metal scrap is going to be one of the first items in the game that you may have some trouble looting. The best way to find metal scrap is to clear out encampments of scavengers. Rookmoor is a good place near the start of the game where you can do this, but any scavengers are great for metal scrap. The enemies themselves will drop scrap, and scrap will also spawn in several of the loot spots scattered around the scavenger encampment. Wands are one of the best weapon types in the game that are easily slept on by many new players. They're super effective and super useful even if you're doing a melee build. They don't consume mana, so they actually allow you to continuously spam the attack, and although they may not always be super accurate, quickly changing to a wand and just spamming attack more often than not will allow you to take out an enemy before it even gets close to you. And even if you don't, it allows you to get in some free damage before you attack with your melee weapon. Not to mention the fact that it also doesn't consume stamina, so having a wand as a backup will get you out of several tough situations. Next up, we have the merciless attack skill. When you're fighting enemies in Enshrouded, you've probably noticed that when this white bar below the health bar of an enemy gets filled up, they get staggered and just sort of stand there dazed and confused. And you've probably wondered if there's a way to do some sort of finishing move when the enemies are in this state. Well, you can, but it requires the merciless attack skill. This is going to be much more useful for melee builds, but considering any build is conceivably going to end up stunning enemies like this, And the fact that the ability is so cheap and unlocked so early in the skill tree, it's a safe choice for any character build and does deal a ton of damage. Once the enemies are stunned, you simply walk up to them and press E if you're on mouse and keyboard or Y if you're on controller. You can upgrade your weapons in the game by walking up to any villager, interacting with them, and go into the Enhance Equipment tab. Upgrading weapons costs runes, which you can find on enemies in the Shroud, and the better the weapon is, the more enhancement slots it will have. Prioritize looting chests. Chests are where you find the best loot in Enshrouded. However, the loot you get from chests is random. The fancier looking the chest, the better the loot, and if you get really lucky, you might find a legendary item. And legendaries have the highest amount of upgrade slots, making them the most sought after weapons in the game. However, the fact that this is random makes every single chest precious. So never ever skip a chest. Usually you're gonna find better chests around tougher enemies in tougher areas. But before you move on from an area, always make sure you search every nook and cranny, because you need to loot as many chests as possible, so you get to roll the dice on whether or not you get a legendary as many times as you can. And eventually you will build up an arsenal of the best weapons in the game. Last and certainly not least is magic chests. Magic chests can be crafted at the carpenter. They require one small chest and one shroud core, but these are no ordinary chests. So long as any material needed is placed in a magic chest, any recipe requiring those mats can be crafted from storage. This is a massive quality of life upgrade and will stop you having to sort through all of your loot in your chests before heading over to your workbench and crafting. Anyone that played the demo may have wondered where the crafting from storage feature went, as you used to be able to craft from storage by default. Well, the feature is still here, it just requires a magic chest. Getting the magic chest is as simple as getting the carpenter, and all you have to do to get the carpenter is keep doing the main quests and then do every quest that a villager gives you until that quest line leaves you to a carpenter. It's unlocked super early, but is extremely useful. Alright guys, that's just about going to do it for this one. If you enjoyed this video or you found it useful, please leave a like and a nice positive comment for the YouTube algorithm, and subscribe for future content. You can support the content financially and get access to a private Valheim server by joining the Patreon at patreon.com/NickRawcliffe. I do stream live on Twitch and live on this very YouTube channel, so you can follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/NickRawcliffe. You can follow me on social media and join my Discord at the links below. And until next time, have a good one.